Welcome to Scigest, your fortnightly science from the Bioeconomy Science Institute. Kia ora koutou katoa, welcome to Scigest. I'm your host, Hilary Ireland. Today on the Science Life for Me series, we continue our discussion with mycologist Dr Peter Buchanan, who has spent nearly 50 years studying New Zealand fungi and sharing his passion with the world. If you didn't catch the first episode, maybe go back and have a listen. In it, we get to know Peter, and then we explore the fascinating world of fungi. In this second episode, we discuss Peter's research, impact and outreach, and his thoughts on the future. So it's my pleasure to welcome back to the podcast Dr Peter Buchanan. Peter, welcome back to Scigest.
Right, thanks Hilary, nice to be back.
We hear the phrase standing on the shoulders of giants. What does that mean to you?
I think it has a real ring of truth to me. Having been in science for 50 years and having, well, now looking back, I guess, a bit more than I used to, I have always felt that the science that we do is seriously built on the people who've gone before and have worked in similar areas. About 25 years ago, when we moved buildings, we had the chance to, for example, just give credit to our forebears. And so for the mycology area, we had a number of labs, several labs, and our whole facility and other rooms to be named. And so we chose the names of people who were special to us in our careers, the people who were our professors at university, our colleagues from DSIR days even, and just to give credit to those who have provided the science that we build upon today. And I think that's been something that's been important to me for all my career, and I've been really fortunate that I've often had people who've worked with me over many decades. I go back just to my first visit to DSIR, and this was as a science student for a holiday job, and the person I met and worked with was Sean Pennycook. Here we are 50 plus years on, and today I share an office with Sean Pennycook. And he's a bit older than me. But it's just wonderful to have this longevity of colleagues who I have worked with, and also those who've died earlier, but we can give credit to them today by remembering their names through various things. Our great friend and colleague, the late Ross Beaver, and we have an area that we meet in often as a group called the Ross Beaver Foyer. So really important to acknowledge and to be thankful for those people who've gone before us. It also speaks of the real longevity of much of the research that we do. And that, for example, the facial eczema fungus has only just been named, and yet facial eczema has been studied for decades in New Zealand and is really important. The ryegrass endophyte work that was recently celebrated by the Prime Minister's Science Awards goes back to the 1980s, where this fungus in ryegrass was recognised as important, and they found a very useful fungal endophyte that now is within the ryegrass that most of the industry uses in the pastoral sector, and worth billions of dollars to New Zealand. And Linda Johnson's leadership was recognised recently for that, but it goes back over 40 years of research to achieve this outcome. So the longevity of research and the importance of relationships with people throughout that time has been something that's been really important to me for all of my working life.
You've covered so many aspects of the fungal world, from biodiversity, conservation and ecology, biosecurity, bioprotection and human health, which speaks to the many ways our lives intersect with the fungal world. Can you tell us about some of your highlights from your research and why the research was undertaken, what you discovered and its impact?
I'll concentrate on two things. One, because they're more recent than some others, but the awareness of fungal conservation was something that was really intriguing to me. I initially didn't really come to that early on in studies of fungi, but realised, of course, that just as plants and animals can be threatened, the same threats apply to fungi as well. So in more recent years, I've had the opportunity to do a little bit of work in fungal conservation and try to bring it to awareness within New Zealand. The main research actually is being done by Jerry Cooper, and it's great that the Department of Conservation is now aware that fungi are threatened as well, and that although not much work is done yet in terms of mitigating the threats to fungi, it's the threat itself that we need to mitigate as it applies to all organisms, and the fungi are part of the impact as well. So fungal conservation now, we've got many New Zealand fungi red listed on the IUCN World Red List of threatened organisms, and so that's been really great to be part of that and to make people aware generally that fungi are affected by the impact of humanity, land clearance, pollution, and of course the climate crisis that we ignore at our peril. So fungal conservation, I was really interested to try to make people more aware of the Māori knowledge and uses of fungi. There were some elements documented by Europeans, the European early settlers in New Zealand. They observed Māori in terms of what they would eat of the fungi and other uses that they had for fungi. Māori unfortunately didn't write down their knowledge because of they didn't have a written language, but we have just the writings of these Europeans to cover what must have been an extensive knowledge of fungi by Māori. And I wanted to at least get that European knowledge that they'd recorded into some form that was more accessible to Māori themselves. Because even Kaumātua and Kuia did not have knowledge that I might have expected because it hadn't been passed down through the loss of traditional knowledge as it was typically passed down by word of mouth, and all of the unfortunate situation of the Tauhanga Suppression Act and other things that meant that information didn't get passed down. So there was a neat project that I got funded for to produce a bilingual text or little booklet for teachers in schools, especially in the kura kaupapa movement, and we circulated this book to give an introduction to fungi and all of the known traditional uses of fungi to each kura kaupapa school, and that's subsequently gone on to have a much more relevant part across the whole education system, and I would like to think it gets used in the new science curriculum, which is being developed as we speak, and for which I did a submission recently. My submission was to thank the curriculum developers that they are putting fungi now in at year 1, so children get to know fungi, which is fantastic, to lobby against the use of fungi under the term microorganism, and that applies more at the upper levels where they still seem to want to have it there, and also to help have awareness of these traditional uses by Māori throughout our education system, because it's part of Aotearoa, it's part of our history and our uniqueness that Māori had these particular uses of particular fungi. One of the most intriguing one that I've always found really a bit baffling was the vegetable caterpillar, which is a strange structure where you've got a fungus that has parasitized a caterpillar, a large caterpillar, and the caterpillar becomes mummified, the fungus grows out of its head, and it produces a long stalk, which half of which is visible above ground. So Māori knew about this, and they collected it in quantity, apparently. I've never been able to collect it in quantity because I obviously don't have the right eyes, and maybe it's not as common now, but and I collected 3 one day, and I was absolutely rapt with my efforts. Māori collected it in quantity, and they would burn it and produce a charcoal from it, which they discovered could be made into, by powdering it and mixing it with bird fat, a stable black pigment for tamoko, for tattooing. There may be some antibiotic properties that helped gave the benefit of the use of that product for that black pigment, because you could think of charcoal of anything that could be used to produce a powder, but somehow it is the vegetable caterpillar, the so-called awhito, which was valued for production of the pigment for taumoko by Māori. A very unusual use of a fungus. But they had a number that, of course, they could use as food, some for medicine, and there was even one that they could use for carrying fire. And it would, a very useful product that they could carry with them, and they could blow on it after having it smouldering for many hours to days, and in that way carry fire with them.
Wow, that's so interesting. Gosh. So how can people get access to that resource? It sounds wonderful.
Yeah, well, it's a free resource. It's actually can be downloaded from the Huia Press, which is a publication house in Wellington. So it's readily downloadable. It's also been picked up by Science Learning Hub and adapted for its wonderful website for teachers. And we just give away copies as appropriate as well. So it's had a good life, and I hope it does keep getting used, because it's just really neat, I think, for children to grow up with this knowledge of how it was with Māori hundreds of years ago, recognising these fungi as useful. And some of the edible ones now are actually being grown for home cultivation. You can buy bags of piki kiori, which is a wonderful edible mushroom. It looks unlike a mushroom. It's sort of hanging teeth, and it's
hanging.
It's sort of teeth-like structures.
Teeth. Huh.
Yeah, it's like a cascade of hanging teeth.
Oh, lovely.
And it tastes a bit
cute.
like seafood. It's delicious, and you can buy it, and it's growing on sawdust and sterilized sawdust in bags, and you can buy it, and you can actually have it producing the fruit body in your home and have it for dinner.
Delicious. It sounds like, with those examples of the conservation and working with Māori, that collaborations and partnerships have been an important part of your career. Can you tell us about how broad relationship building with diverse communities has shaped your career and created lasting impact?
Yes, going globally, I guess, first, science is a wonderful career because of the fact that it seeks to answer all sorts of questions. So as a scientist, you typically have an inquisitive mind, and questions are just natural. But in science, you can seek to answer questions. And around the world, there are lots of people also doing the same sort of thing. So there's this wonderful community in science of people asking and answering questions for all sorts of reasons. And so I've loved the community internationally, and the opportunity to interact with them, be it by now, of course, a lot on the internet, but also sometimes going to conferences, or even having the privilege of studying overseas, which I did in my early days. That was part of what DSIR wanted scientists to experience. So those international links, last long and are really valuable, and also the new ideas that come from working with other people from overseas is fantastic. Also, you get the same thing, of course, working with people in different institutes around the country, and also working in the society that you find yourself in. So I've enjoyed working with teachers, sometimes talking at schools, maybe some other community groups, forest and bird groups and tramping clubs and that sort of thing, just to get the message out that, fungi are really interesting. And also, I think that scientists are just normal people. Some people have this, I think, quite strange idea of scientists as being somehow weird and unapproachable. And I don't know, I mean, I feel I work with a group of lovely people, and though I, of course, have all sorts of idiosyncrasies, and the passion for fungi can seem over the top to other people, it's just it's actually a great thing. It's the way, people might get passionate about music, or they might get passionate about some particular hobby. I've been fortunate to have a job where my hobby and my interests have coalesced together, and I trust that the work we do is certainly, I know it is relevant in terms of biosecurity and sort of the foundation of the science that is needed in New Zealand. But it's also been a wonderful source of real interest and satisfaction in being able to better understand the biodiversity of Aotearoa.
Do you think that passion that you have has helped you in leadership?
Yes, I'm sure it has, because the people around me are typically similarly with the same passion. And I think unless a manager understands that, they can easily misinterpret things and be much more sort of, dictatorial and have a more harsh attitude to achieving end results. When science is constrained with a very definite target that must be met at all costs, you close off all of the other avenues that could lead to much more interesting discoveries than you initially were intending to make. And that's the wonder of science, that you can't just prescribe it to make money or to answer this narrow question, because there has to be a degree of latitude to allow scientists to just do good science, as well as long as there's a purpose in the overall direction of it. I mean, I hope that can continue, that we don't become so fixated on answering relatively small issues when there is a bigger picture that could actually be more appropriate for the work. And also that you need basically an army. I don't like the term army, but it's like having an army within a country that gives that foundational understanding of things that will serve the country well when some crisis develops. So you have these people with this sort of underpinning knowledge doing really, really important work, but that they can be brought together when some crisis arises. So that's, I think, the way it was always conceived in the old days, that you need these core disciplines to cover the needs of the country. You don't need multiple people on the same core discipline, but you need this spread of expertise that will serve the country in the long term.
We really do. And it's probably slightly even more challenging these days in terms of the demand on the output with the rise of AI and the complications that brings in terms of productivity levels.
Each time technologies come, we've actually, I think, we can use it to our advantage. Yes. and not feel swamped by it, though I know we're still in the process of assimilating what AI is and what it is going to be able to do. The fascination of and the complexity that I've mentioned of the world that we still are only just finding out, in terms of the fungi anyway. I mean, there's thousands of species that we expect and are pretty sure are in Aotearoa that we have never yet documented. Sure, we don't want to just be stamp collectors and going out and finding, the next new thing, but the applications that could come from some of these new discoveries also shouldn't be ignored. So there is good reason to keep understanding our biodiversity, especially the unrecorded biodiversity that exists.
Your efforts in science communication and outreach are very impressive, and to the extent one time you have been awarded the Science Communicator of the Year by the New Zealand Association of Scientists. Why has it been important for you to communicate widely about your research, and what would you say to other scientists who may be more cautious or less eager to communicate and engage in outreach?
I've always felt that one of the responsibilities of scientists, especially scientists working in public good science, which I feel is the main, is a primary purpose of government-funded science, It's therefore science funded by taxpayers, and therefore we have a responsibility to tell the taxpayer or help the taxpayer understand what their money is being spent on. So the idea of scientists talking to the public seemed implicit in myself having a job funded by taxpayers. But then I also wanted not just to say what I do, but say why I do it, and hence also, and therefore also to encourage younger people to consider a career in science and also realise the wonderful stimulus that you have in your life if your career can follow something that you're really interested in. So talking in schools and looking at ways of bringing people together with a shared interest in fungi was something that motivated colleagues of mine and myself in the early days to set up, for example, the New Zealand Fungal Forays. So we started that in 1986, and first foray was in Kauranga Valley near Thames. And it's grown over the years, now 40 years. We just had our 40th anniversary, and I'm proudly wearing our 40-year T-shirt with all of the different locations that we've had for each fungal foray, because they are always held in autumn.
In the shape of a basket?
A basket fungus, yes.
Very nice.
Beautifully done by our new president of our Fungal Network Society, Michael in Rotorua. So yes, the fungal forays have been a wonderful bringing together of people who both either have jobs in fungi or have just a general interest, any sort of interest, eating, photographing, drawing, painting, whatever. And so over the years we've gone to a different location in New Zealand every year. And we've taken over a community hall and made it into a laboratory and allowed students from the school to come in and the general public to just learn about the fungi in their forests around them. And it's been really encouraging to see the response of communities and schools in that. But a primary purpose for us, the participants, is to collect material and to bring it back to the national collections, and thereby extending our knowledge of the fungi. And we almost always find new species in each of these fungal forays. They last a week, and we have a day of papers and presentations as well as 3 days of collecting. And they're long days too, because you work at night to do identifications and document things, and we have an amazing database, of course, of fungi, because the collections all have databases associated with them, and we populate those from knowledge that we get at the fungal forays. So it's both an outreach to the community where we are basing the foray, but it's also a way of bringing together people from all over the country and from overseas to come to a week-long fungal-focused event. And the media have been really good too. We've had good coverage on radio and TV and newspapers. And we also set up a little bit more recently, that was 86 when we started those, but more recently the BioBlitz concept, which was something overseas. It was a public awareness raising effort for all biodiversity, where initially, as it was first devised, you would spend 24 hours right through the night, including right through the night, to document as many different kinds of life as you could in that period of time at a particular location. So we did it. Our first one was in St Heliers, and we had a marquee on Tamaki Drive, and we went to a nearby school and to a reserve, and people with all sorts of disciplines and interests in different parts of biodiversity. There were people studying insects and fish and birds and bacteria and fungi and all sorts of things. And they all go out during that 24 hours and see what they can find. And some of those trips were with public in tow to show people what they were looking for and help getting the public also to help find things. This was in a city like Auckland. It was to raise the profile that even in a city situation there's biodiversity all around us, and it was helping people to understand, the complexity that is there, and to see some organisms they probably had never seen before. So BioBlitz has been variously adopted by different organisations around the country, and of course it's internationally well established now too. It's quite variable in the way that you organise it, but basically it's bringing a whole lot of people with expertise in different areas of biology together and allowing the public to see displays and learn about what is in their environment. So it's a very adaptable event that's had good benefit around the country, I think.
They sound really cool. I'd love to go on one. There's quite a few nice examples of fungi being celebrated in pop culture, from fungi appearing on banknotes and stamps, and then there's the fungus of the year. What's been your involvement in those?
Yeah, well, stamps was a colleague, Eric McKenzie, and he'd lobbied New Zealand Post for many, many years, and eventually, I think 2004, got a set of fungal stamps, which is great. The banknote was, it actually, it sort of predated me in that there was a design that was based on a tuhoi story of the kakako bird rubbing its cheek against the blue mushroom, and that was featured on the $50 banknote, the original $50 banknote. But I became involved when the Reserve Bank notified that the $50 banknote was going to be redesigned. And I wanted to safeguard the mushroom on the banknote because it was on the bottom right-hand corner and it had been already denigrated, if you like, by an anti-counterfeit measure of a fern leaf that had obscured part of one of the mushrooms. Oh. So when I heard about this redesign, I emailed the Reserve Bank and I said, please, please, please keep the mushroom on the banknote. They were intrigued, I think, that anyone was interested. And we had a good exchange of correspondence about the biology of this particular mushroom. And the new design that came out was so much better, with the mushroom almost central in the banknote. And it is a beautiful, absolutely beautiful banknote design that was entered in the Banknote of the Year award that year.
Fantastic.
And we are one of only 2 countries in the world with a mushroom on a banknote. The other one is Costa Rica, but ours is much more beautiful.
Okay, not that you're biased.
No, not at all. And the other thing, the fungus of the year, yes, I'd like this to become an annual event. It remains to be seen if it will, but for the last 2 years and earlier in 2018, we had a public vote of fungus of the year. Mm-hmm. And that blue mushroom that's on the $50 banknote, not surprisingly, won the fungus of the year first time. So we took that off the list of 12 candidates that we allow people to vote for. And the basket fungus won in 2025, and this year the orange coral fungus won. So we have a list of 12 fungi that we'd like people to consider and to learn a bit more about. And that ranges from disease-causing fungi through to pretty fungi, a whole range of things, including, the facial eczema. I should mention facial eczema is a really, really important, economically important fungus that has affected our livestock for decades. Oh, yes. And only last year was it discovered that the fungus we thought it was not the fungus. In fact, it's causing the problem, and it's just been described as a new species.
Wow.
By Bioeconomy Science Institute as a collaboration across multiple scientists, that we now know the one that is actually doing most of the toxin production that's so important for our livestock.
Cool. What a great story.
That's
Excellent.
what mycology is about.
That's right. Looking to the future, what are your hopes for development of fungal-related research? Are there any key opportunities and challenges, you think?
I'm very keen that there's an increased understanding of the potential use of fungi for protein. Fungi use very little resource, if you like, to produce their output, if it's in a mushroom form or some other form. As opposed to pastoral farming, I mean, you've got a lot of land required, a lot of water required. Fungi can be managed in a small ecosystem, I mean, internal in factories and that sort of thing. So you can produce protein from fungi I think, much more environmentally friendly way. I think it will be done in future because it will be a way of providing protein and food for people to supplement the other ways that we provide food. So I'm really keen on mycoprotein, and I think one day it will really have its day. It's there already, but I think it can be developed much, much more. And there'll continue to be discoveries from fungi for all sorts of other purposes as well. Mycoremediation and use of fungi in products like fungal leathers that have been produced now. There's handbags made from fungi. There's even material construction of substitutes for polystyrene, and even use of fungi in construction of houses and that sort of thing. So there's lots of applications that have yet to be explored further to make fungi relevant in that regard as well.
Well, it's remarkable because you really have done a lot of the groundwork to raise the profile of fungi. So thank you for that. You've achieved so much in your career. What are your plans for the future?
I still am interested in furthering fungi. It's wonderful that Bioeconomy Science Institute allows retired people to contribute and keep giving back, so that the idea of having research associates is so, I think, it's mutually beneficial. The scientist benefits and the country and the institute benefits. So being able to be a volunteer at the institute is fantastic. That's some of my time. But I'm also particularly interested in restoration and of local reserves in Auckland, but also of places like Hoturu, Little Barrier Island. Rotary, lots of opportunities in Rotary and environmental areas. Science education as well. There's a science forum that we all help organise every year for 170 students from throughout New Zealand for 2 weeks. So there's so much to do. And not outside of the biology side and the science side, new things, woodwork, men's shed. It's wonderful to have choice in retirement, and there's no shortage of opportunities to be doing really, really satisfying and stimulating things with lots of fantastic people.
From wood decomposition to making beautiful objects with wood, you'd be the one to know if there was something wrong with the wood.
Yes, maybe. Yeah, but I don't have the skills of the tradespeople that know how to do things so much better than I do. But I'm happy to learn.
Yes, indeed. It's been such a pleasure and a privilege speaking with you today, Peter. Thank you for taking your time to share your story and your research and your passion for a really fascinating part of our natural world. Thanks for being here.
It's been a pleasure, Hilary. Thanks very much.
And thank you out there for listening. If you'd like to know more about the topics covered on Scigest, check out our episode pages on the Plant and Food Research website. Please also subscribe to or follow the Scigest channel and rate and review each episode. Why not give it 5 stars, particularly this one? Thank you and mā te wā.